The same coach who helped Mike Brown actually engineer New York's first championship in 53 years is now being pursued by another franchise for a head coaching job of his own. And if the Knicks lose him, it could genuinely shake up the exact coaching staff that just delivered a title. I've gone through Chris Jent's remarkable rise, his pivotal role in the championship run, and exactly why Portland has come calling. Every quote, every detail. Let's break it all down right now. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because this is a genuinely fascinating story about the coaching talent hiding behind this entire championship run. Let's start with how Jent actually ended up in New York in the first place, because his arrival came only after a genuinely long, difficult coaching search. When Mike Brown took over as head coach, the Knicks had been turned down by multiple targets before ever landing on Jent, including Indiana Pacers assistant Mike Weinar, New Orleans Pelicans associate head coach James Borrego, Minnesota Timberwolves assistant Pablo Prigioni, and Dallas Mavericks assistant Jay Triano. After that string of rejections, New York finally completed the hiring of Chris Jent, then a Charlotte Hornets assistant, fresh off a perfect 6-0 Summer League championship run, to serve as offensive coordinator under Brown. There was also a genuinely fitting personal detail buried in that hire too. Jent actually returned to an organization he'd once played for himself, having spent the 1996-97 season in New York as an actual player decades before ever returning in this coaching capacity. It's a genuinely rare, full-circle story, a player who once wore the uniform himself eventually returning to help deliver the exact championship that organization had been chasing for over 5 decades. That hire also came with a real, sensitive transition happening behind the scenes. Jent took over from Jalen Brunson's own father, Rick Brunson, who'd served as Tom Thibodeau's associate head coach the previous season. Rick Brunson remained on staff in a reduced role rather than being let go entirely, a genuinely graceful way to handle what could have easily become an awkward, complicated situation given his direct family connection to the team's franchise star. Jent's actual impact on the floor turned out to be genuinely significant too. Throughout New York's entire playoff run, Brown consistently and repeatedly praised his assistants, specifically naming offensive coordinators Chris Jent and TJ Saint alongside his defensive-minded staff, crediting them directly for helping identify and execute exactly the right strategic buttons to press against every single opponent. Brown described a playoff run built around relentlessly hunting mismatches, whether that meant attacking Joel Embiid, James Harden, or Donovan Mitchell directly in pick-and-roll situations, throwing constant traps at Tyrese Maxey, or simply pushing the pace against a Cleveland defense that struggled badly in transition. After yet another commanding win to close out that Eastern Conference Finals series, Brown specifically credited his coaching staff for continuing to adjust and present new wrinkles offensively and defensively throughout the entire postseason, even as opponents adjusted right back. That kind of specific, series-by-series strategic credit is exactly the sort of endorsement that gets an assistant coach genuinely noticed by other franchises around the league looking to fill their own head coaching vacancies. Jent's coaching background stretches back over 2 full decades too, spanning stops with the Cleveland Cavaliers' Ohio State's college program, the Sacramento Kings, Atlanta Hawks, Los Angeles Lakers, and Charlotte Hornets before he ever joined Brown's staff in New York. That kind of extensive, well-traveled coaching now capped off with an actual championship on his own record, is exactly the profile that tends to attract real head coaching interest from other franchises around the league. And that's precisely what's happening right now. According to Sean Hyken of the Rose Garden Report, Jent has recently gained real traction in the Portland Trail Blazers' own head coaching search, joining confirmed finalists Micah Norrie and Tyler Lashbrook as a genuine candidate for that opening. Portland's search became necessary after losing Tiago Splitter, who left to take the Chicago Bulls head coaching job despite guiding the Blazers to a respectable 42-40 record and an actual playoff appearance the season before. With Splitter now in Chicago, Portland has been forced to expand its search well beyond those two previously reported finalists. And Jent's genuine championship experience, extensive coaching background, and close working relationship with Brown all make him a genuinely intriguing option as the Blazers look to identify their next head coach. Losing a coaching candidate from Portland's own bench just months earlier and now circling back to poach from a championship staff shows exactly how competitive and interconnected these front office coaching searches have become around the league. It's worth stepping back and appreciating just how much this specific coaching staff has already accomplished together in such a short window, too. Brown's entire staff, including Jent, Saint, Rick Brunson, Maurice Cheeks, and player development hires Charles Allen and Ricardo Foyce, came together for the very first time entering this past season. And within that single first year together, they delivered New York's first NBA championship since 1973. The NBA Coaches Association itself formally recognized the entire staff for that accomplishment, a rare and genuine honor for a coaching group working together for barely more than a single season before winning it all. Assembling a brand new staff from scratch and immediately winning a title in year one is an extraordinarily rare accomplishment in professional sports, one that speaks to just how quickly this particular group of coaches managed to build real chemistry and trust with both each other and the players they were suddenly leading. Ricardo Foyce's own path to joining this staff adds another layer of interesting context too, given his own accomplished background. The Italian-born assistant previously worked under Brown during his final stretch leading the Sacramento Kings, and before that, he'd built a genuinely impressive URSM of his own, reaching the Sweet 16 twice as an Arizona assistant under Tommy Lloyd, winning 2 Pac-12 titles, serving as director of analytics at Gonzaga during their first ever national championship game appearance, and even working as director of player development during Phoenix's 2021 finals run, where he personally worked directly with current Knicks starter Mikal Bridges. That kind of accumulated coaching talent across this entire staff explains exactly why other franchises around the league are now circling individual members of it. Having a genuine championship pedigree stacked across nearly every level, college basketball, analytics, and NBA player development, gives this coaching group a rare, well-rounded expertise that few other staffs around the league can genuinely match. Step back and look at the complete picture here. And losing Jent to a head coaching opportunity elsewhere would represent a genuinely bittersweet outcome for this organization. On one hand, watching an assistant earn his own head coaching shot after helping deliver a championship is exactly the kind of story that speaks well of Brown's entire program and the culture this staff built together. On the other hand, New York would be losing real, proven offensive strategic ability right as it enters a genuinely difficult title defense against a suddenly reshaped Eastern Conference field, including a Philadelphia roster that's added both LeBron James and Jaylen Brown specifically to compete with this exact Knicks team. So here's where everything stands. Chris Jent, one of the key architects behind New York's championship-winning offense, is now a genuine candidate for Portland's own head coaching opening, following the same path that already took Thiago Splitter to the Chicago Bulls. Whether Jent ultimately lands that job or remains in New York to help defend this championship, his rise from a coaching staff that was turned down by multiple candidates before ever hiring him to a genuine head coaching prospect represents one of the more remarkable individual stories connected to this entire title run. So tell me what you think. Do you think the Knicks should be worried about losing Chris Jent to Portland's head coaching search? Or do you believe this coaching staff is deep enough to absorb that kind of departure? And how much credit do you personally give assistant coaches like Jent for New York's championship run this past season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you catch every update as it happens. I'll be back soon with more Knicks news.